The highway department was cleaning up a bunch of downed dead trees after a big storm, and I talked to the foreman, and he said they would bring these chips by. It's like 2 blocks away from where we are, and now we've got about 16 yards of wood chips. He said today they'll do a little bit more work. If I can clear this out before they're done, they'll send another load over here. So I gave him $20 as a thank you. He really didn't want to take it, but I insisted because my gosh, what a huge resource. So now what do we do with all these chips from the wood chip truck? The work for today will be using, since this was deposited on our driveway, which is an asphalt surface, and it's icy and frozen, I use a snow shovel and a snow sled. This is a more rigid sled, a jet sled I got from a local hardware store, and I can put about 2 or 3 wheelbarrow loads worth of material into the sled, and I don't have to lift it. I can just drag it across. And since our chicken yard is right here, I can put a little bit of snow over yesterday's charcoal deposit. This was from our biochar from the wood stove, which I like to put where we walk to crush, but it doesn't let the sled glide as easily, so I might add a little snow on top. We could add some wood chips here, but I need to move this material into the winter run first. I don't want to necessarily bury all those food scraps, so we might chip away at getting that inside and making a big sponge, deep sponge of dried wood chips here. But I can also cache a ton of them back in here. This is our summer compost run. I've just been dumping some bread back in here, some random stuff. Sorry for the wind. But what I realized is that there's this one area in here that was particularly rich with red wigglers during the summer, and somehow it stayed insulated enough. Let's see. If the chickens don't eat them all, what we can do is bring in 1 big load of wood chips, dump it, and then throw in 1 or 2 scoops of this material so we can inoculate another pile of wood chips that'll be insulative with these red wigglers. But I have to keep the pace up so these hens don't obliterate the population. The first load I brought in, I put the sled full of wood chips first, and then the worm-laden material on top, and I'm realizing they're obliterating that pretty fast. So I'm going to do hay fork or 2 of worm-laden goodnesses with some wood chips on top. It's kind of insane how much worm life is in here, and it really is insane how fast the chickens are going through it. So by me filming this one shot, we're going to lose most of the worms from this scoop, but it's just exciting to see. They get a lot of pleasure from it, but I don't want to let them eat everything, but I'll get the chips on top now. So certainly the hens can work their way through the chip to get to the worms, but they're a little bit, not lazy, but they're just efficient with their labor. They're going to focus on where they can get at it. I might dump more chips on there next time too, so they really have to work to get at them. And when it's all said and done, I'm probably going to cap it with about 2 feet of fresh wood chips. So it's quite a while before the hens can get into there. But this will create a new inoculating lens from this volume of material, some old food scraps from over here, all consolidated into one huge compost pile with a ton of carbon. It should be a really nice move, but I need to stop talking and get back to it because there's a mountain over there to chip away at. This crew back here can work for a little bit and get a few more worms, but mix material together with the wood chips. I'll get a little more on top. And then I went through and dug up a bunch of what was right in front of the high tunnel, the winter run here, and got it transferred in and onto the composting beds. But you'll notice what I never do is scour right down to the ground and get every last drop. There's some soaked grain, there's charcoal, there's wood chips, there's food scraps. There are worms that are down and in this, and so if I bury all of this in wood chips, fresh wood chips, it's not a loss because then it becomes all secured, insulated food source for the worms that are in there, and the hens can get at it later on. So it's a good reminder. You don't have to be thorough and perfectionist with these sorts of systems. Debris from areas left in place provides food for the next level of what's happening. Especially in the winter, the more we can keep it inoculated and buffered, the better. So the ground's a little crusty, but it's thawed underneath, and so we'll buffer it with 2 or 3 feet of insulative wood chips, and that should allow worm life to really take off again in this area. It really could seem like a waste to bury all those food scraps and sprouts and charcoal underneath the wood chips, but they'll resurface again later and be probably higher food value, and they'll be loaded with with a lot more worms. And this also becomes a much nicer sponge. Next time we bring in food scraps, we can dump it on top of wood chips instead of directly on the earth. So there's way more nutrient absorption from these dried chips. And in fact, I might go down the walkway of this whole space, burying what could be food scraps for the hens and turn into food scraps for the worms, which would be much higher value later on for the hens and much more fertility. So it works out, and it's a little bit seemingly lazy, but somewhat effective. These loads that come in with the big trucks are kind of obscenely large and ridiculous. It looks like I didn't touch the pile at all, and yet here we are. There's about 10 or 15 sled loads that are dumped in front. Really tidied this up. I'm starting to go into the winter run, but there's a lot more that can go in there, but not a ton more. And then this back area is already turning into a little mountain of its own. So just keep chipping away at it. We'll find some other areas to send it if we can't find room in here, although I think we can just load it all ever increasingly deeper and deeper into here, mixing some red wigglers as we go, and just leave that as an extremely high value reserve for our hens for next season, and just let that worm population expand. Most winters we deplete the worm population to feed the hens. This winter I think we can actually boost it. Took a little snack break and then coming back to it. It's still so much more to do, but I'm more than halfway done with it now. We're gonna quite possibly run out of space in the chicken yard to receive all these chips, and I told the guys I would take another load tomorrow, so stay tuned. In another video we'll figure out where the heck another 18 yards of wood chips go, but I'll poke at this a little bit more and see what we can tuck in over there. The winter run's nearing capacity for what it can take on. We've got a nice, maybe 2 or 3 foot deep bed of chips right out front now, and once we flatten that out we can make a bowl shape on the outside, a little rim, and that can be where we start dumping compost, raw food scraps coming in from now on. And then we can also do so in the main walkway. We're gonna let the hens do some of the work of spreading out these chips in here. You can see where I'm standing on top of them. I am at the ceiling. The ceiling is a little over 8 feet high, so we've gone up a few feet in the central walkway. I don't want to mix them necessarily into the compost on the edges because this is getting closer to be a finished compost. It would be a big design mistake in my mind to take raw, fresh, piney wood chips and, for example, fold them directly into this really dark material on the far end. It would set it back immensely from being able to go out to the garden sooner than later. So this area will be on its own over here. The edges can be on their own. And what we can do is slowly add a little bit of chip. Once this is smoothed out, we can dump food scraps on the far end, and then as it gets scooped onto the piles, they'll get by default a little bit of chip with them, so they'll get a little carbon being mixed in as we go, and we'll do it at the beginning of this pipeline rather than further down, just so we preserve that gradient, that flow of raw excess nutrient to more and more finished compost on the far end. I think this back area can take a few more loads, but not too much more. The red wiggler scene is now mixed a little into the chips in some thick pockets, more predominantly over here, and then buried about 2 feet deep throughout the rest. I'll bury the rest of this in here, so take another 10 loads. And so then the R value, I don't know what it would be for 2 or 3 feet deep layer of wood chips. If anyone would know, share in the comments. But that certainly will help the warm 50-degree temperature of the earth down below come up and meet the otherwise frozen compost pockets, which should open it up to the worms to work. It really does feel like come spring, we should be, when we get into the very busy time of spring where we're really rushing around with seed starting and nursery work and shipping, we should not need to also be thinking about where we're going to source carbon. So it's a lot of excess work right now, but the ground is frozen. There's snow on the ground. It's a perfect time to be banking this excess abundance so we don't have to worry about it later on when it's a stress to find it. Getting to the home stretch here, busting out all the different tools. We've been using the snow shovel when it's up against the asphalt, the A.M. Leonard bulk moving, what is that, 8-tine fork with the D handle. That's pretty nice for bulk moving and just kind of shoveling right into the sled. And then this little metal shovel helps me break up the ice, so that's kind of fun. I'm getting ready to be done with this. I'm gonna go for an Epsom salt bath after this is done, maybe drink a half gallon of water. But another couple of loads and we're getting into the home stretch for delivery. You can see we spilled a lot, and that's okay. Chickens will spread that out. Now the back area is as filled as it can be. The winter runs as filled as it can be, and so then the last bit will be dressing out this walkway and should actually brighten up the place pretty nicely once we're done. That's it. Took about a half a day, and pretty much everything is moved into the chicken yard. Chickens, a couple of them snuck out and they're enjoying themselves, and that's fine. Normally I like to sweep things up, but our sidewalk, our driveway broom broke from extended overuse, so I need to get another one. Plus I think these guys are bringing another load tomorrow, which is absolutely ridiculous, but pretty amazing. It took a half day to move it by myself. I think tomorrow, if it comes, maybe Juan will be around, and Sasha and Juan and I can work on it together, and we'll move a bunch into the backyard for a compost heating project, which we'll document if we do. And you can see our pathway is now about a foot deeper, maybe 2 feet in some spots. The hens will smooth this out. I never put the effort in to grade and smooth this. They enjoy it a lot more than I do, so we'll let them do that. Got a couple ladies out there. We got to make sure we bring them in for the evening, but they're having a nice little time, so we'll let them be. And yeah, mountain of carbon. Definitely many thousands of pounds of more or less straight, super absorptive carbon that is now in the pipeline. That should be able to be the amount of carbon we need, the bulking carbon for all the food scraps that are coming in through the spring. I would guess this is around 20 yards that came in. And the winter run, they'll spread it down the line there to that one divider. I've got a bunch more dividers on the far end so we can kind of smooth it out and bump it up. And we got nice, easy to commute carbon on the inside of here without it getting too blended into the finishing pipeline. We'll do a video soon talking about the logistics of this kind of rolling hills vibe. But basically we've been piling up material more frequently. It's a lot more surface area interaction per volume by making these lumps throughout. And that's been working pretty nicely. So we'll keep on with that, but we'll go into further detail another time. Meanwhile, our little rooster man will be keeping an eye on the ladies. A couple older ladies will be taking naps on the sauna. Thanks for watching a very long-winded video about basically moving wood chips into piles. Take care.